Welcome to the Bold Moves How Did You Know podcast, a podcast for the naturally curious who want to define their own path. Here, I'm sharing bold move stories that propelled my guests from curiosity to action. And in doing so, they've defined a path that is purposeful to them. Through these stories, I hope you'll be inspired to pursue your boldest dreams. Today, I'm excited to introduce you to Julie Randall. Julie is the author of Patient 71, an inspiring true story of a mother's love that fueled her fight to stay alive. 4 days after her 50th birthday, Julie suffered a sudden and severe seizure at work. At the hospital, she was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic advanced melanoma and got devastating news. She was told that to get her affairs in order because she didn't have long to live. After getting over the initial shock, Julie fought off the fear and started searching for hope. She found an American experimental drug trial, but she was told that there was only room for 70 patients and all the slots had already been filled up. But Julie promised her teenage daughters that she would find a way to fix it, so she refused to take no for an answer. Remarkably, Julie became patient 71. She discovered that when you push the boundaries, refuse to give up, and never lose sight of your goal, extraordinary things can happen. Well, Julie, holy moly, that intro and you're, just setting the scene for your story I'm just so honored that you're here and that you're able to share your brave story with me and the listeners. I know that, probably within your story are so many different moments of having to be bold. And that's really the focus of this podcast. So thank you again for being here. I'd love to start with your story. Just take us through your, what happened, your diagnosis, and the trials and tribulations that you had to fight through.
Yeah, sure. So excited to be here as well. Thank you for having me. Just listening to that intro, it's crazy. I still get choked up. And it's like, who's she talking about?
Exactly.
Okay, so we're 11 years in now. Going back to 2012, I just turned 50, as you explained. And the build up to me turning 50, I wasn't a happy camper, right? So I'm calling this birthday my 4010th. It's on my invitations to the party. Yep, 4010th. Didn't want to turn 50. And what's like now ironic about this, I look back and think that was the least of my worries, turning 50. So we had the party, got over the fact that I was turning 50. And I was really grateful. Like I was a mother of 2 teenage daughters living on the northern beaches of Sydney, Australia, which is like the creme de la creme of where to live in Australia. And the 2.5 children and the puppy dog, and, life was good. Life was good. And also I thought, so I'm driving to work 4 days after my celebrations. And I remember this day so clearly because it was a sunny winter's day. I'm driving along and I'm practicing gratitude, it wasn't something, I was grateful for my life, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't something that I actually did on a day-to-day or even week-to-week basis. And I'm driving along and I'm saying, thank you, universe, for my life. I'm looking out the window, I was concentrating on the road, but I'm looking out the window. And I'm thinking, thank you for my daughters, thank you for my home, thank you for my dog, my job. And even my husband got a mention. So, that's how good my day was going, And I was off to work that day and I worked in the CBD in Sydney and was having lunch that day down by the harbour. So I'm thinking life is spectacular. This is amazing. So I go to work that day there for a little while. It's like, okay, let's go out for lunch. And a couple of colleagues and I, we go down by the opera house,
Mm.
sit there, had a couple of wines and lovely food. And then it's time to wander back to work, which didn't particularly worry me. It's like, it's only a couple of hours and I go home. And it was like the end of my working week. So
Mhm.
I walk back in the office and a colleague says to me, one that wasn't at the lunch, hey, how was your lunch? And in that second, I looked up and I looked at him and I couldn't speak. And I knew I was in absolute trouble. I just knew instinctively. And I just said no words or can't find words, something really basic like that. He must have ushered me over to the foyer and I'm out. The world just went black. So I wake up. I still to this day don't know how long I was out or what I was doing. It was a massive brain seizure right there in the office. So I'm looking down at the ground and all I can, I remember just feeling so sick and all I could see was paramedics' boots and their clothes
Mm.
and my head's hanging down and they're saying, Julie, Julie, Julie. And I could hear what they were saying, but I couldn't respond. And, you know, finally I did manage to get my head up and I'm just, yeah, picked up, put on a trolley, taken in the ambulance to emergency
Mm.
into one of the Sydney hospitals where I stayed and they did scans just on my head and they found a little tumour. Didn't know what it
Mm.
was or whether it may have been benign. They didn't know. And by this stage, my husband's rushed over and
Mhm.
he saying to me, oh, we've been celebrating your birthday. You're just tired. And anyway, I knew instinctively that wasn't the case. So we're
Mhm.
there for 24 hours. I have all these other tests and I'm sitting in bed the next afternoon. My husband's next to me, see the doctor coming with
Mhm.
interns either side. And
Oh, no.
just by the look on their
Mhm.
faces, I knew that this was
Mm.
bad. I really wanted to just like rewind, like I was in a movie, rewind
Yeah.
them walking backwards, and they come to the bottom of the bed and he just says, Julie, you have tumors in your brain, your both lungs, your liver, your pancreas, you all of your lymph nodes. I'm really sorry, this isn't good.
Oh my gosh.
Like 24 hours before I'm running, I was training for a state level touch football tournament, like for an over 45 state level. Like the morning this happened, I'm running
Wow.
out. So I'm like, you can imagine the shock.
Yeah, the shock.
And I'm like, what? And I jump out of bed and I've still got the hospital thing on and I just run and I just start running down the corridor. And my husband's like picking up my gear and the doctor's going, hey, wait, I've got to
Mm.
give you scripts for this and that. No, I ran. People say, where were you running to? And I say, the hills, anywhere, anywhere. So then we, I didn't even know where the car was, obviously. We
Mhm.
go down the lift. My husband's like trying to get in the lift and come down with me. And we get in the car and I'm just like, what the hell?
Yeah,
What
what?
has happened? And we're driving through the city of Sydney. It's a Friday night at this stage. Everybody's out, hanging out of bars, bringing in the
Mm.
weekend, celebrating the weekend. And I'm like, I just remember thinking, how can you be doing that when my life's just turned upside down? And they're having fun and celebrating while I'm start rehearsing how I'm going to tell my teenage daughters
Mm.
that their mother's dying.
Mm.
And that's what happened. And that's what I had to go home and do. So I go home. I remember the house didn't seem the same. Nothing felt the same. And sorry, this just gets me every time. And
Yeah.
I go upstairs to my bedroom because I didn't know where else to go. And then I hear my daughter's coming up the stairs, and they just took one look at me and they're like, "What?" I said, "I'm really sorry, to my eldest daughter, Morgan. I've got cancer." And I left out the gory stage 4, not long to live cancer. and and she just kept wailing, "No, mum, no, mum."
Mm.
And my other little daughter just kind of sobbed in my chest. And I just said, "I'll fix it. I'll fix it. I'm not going to die. You don't have to worry. I'm not going to die." And at that very moment, I started what I call a dance with the monsters in my mind. And the straight up, a monster jumped in and said, "How the hell are you going to do that?" I'm saying, I promise I'll fix it." And it's like, good luck with that. But when your daughters are distraught like that, and
Mhm.
that's what I said. And I guess in my mind, I'm thinking, if I'm going to do everything I can to make this happen. If I can't, I want my daughters to know there was no stone unturned in the world.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah,
Hmm. Gosh, it's such an emotional
it is.
memory story. I can
And this is 11 years and it gets me every single
every
time.
single time. Yeah, it almost feels like I wonder if to you it feels like a movie, although you are the center of it. It feels like I'm as you're relating the story that I'm watching something on TV, not
Yeah,
necessarily communicating with somebody who this happened to, if that makes
yes,
sense.
yes, yeah.
So
And
your natural reaction was, to just want to fix it for your daughters. How did you start putting that puzzle together about what fix it even meant and how to approach that? And, you know, the diagnosis, what seems so eminent as well. So I'm sure you were also trying to figure out how quickly is this all happening or progressing. So there was a whirlwind, I'm sure, that you went through. So I'd love for you to kind of talk about that. But also, I was wondering as you look back, it doesn't seem as if there were any signs that you had the melanoma. Um,
no,
did you, there's nothing to point at that was like, would have helped you understand this diagnosis earlier?
no, not at all. Like I'm fair, so I had a lot of things
Mm-hmm.
cut out, spots cut out. And I went to the skin specialist on a regular basis. I'm sure a lot of people think, "Oh, why wasn't she having skin checks? Why wasn't she?" Well, my story is that I didn't have any outwardly showing melanomas. It was,
Got you. This was
yeah,
inside.
yes, no primary. A lot of people sadly don't know this about skin cancer, and this is part of my what I do now
Mm-hmm.
as well. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's just like, oh, it's just skin cancer. They're the ones you get cut out of your skin. But no, melanoma is deadly. And especially back then, one of the deadliest cancers
Yeah.
you can have. So there has been progress, which we might get, hence I'm still here. But yeah, so nothing, no sign. In fact, I thought I was as fit as I'd ever been in my life,
Mm.
or one of the fittest I'd ever been in my life. There's pictures of me at my party. And look, don't mind if I say this, but it was my 50th. Someone said I
Yeah.
was 40, you would believe me. It
Yeah.
I I was fit.
Yeah.
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 So yeah. the shock, yeah, no signs whatsoever, not a one. So after, to answer your earlier question about, how do you know what moves to plan, what to do?
Yeah.
The answer is I didn't. The answer is I just had to put one foot in front of the other. So to start off, I was offered chemotherapy, and I
Hmm.
think the odds were like 10% chance of me even responding, albeit for a very short amount of time. This was not the answer. This was not going to keep me alive, and I knew it. However, I became an experiment the whole way through because a doctor, a local oncologist, said to me, look, I've just been to this conference and I've seen that these two chemotherapies together have like a 38% chance of somebody responding. So,
Hmm.
whilst I'm not a mathematician, not the smartest tool in the shed, I know the difference between 10% and 38%. I'm like,
Yeah.
no brainer. That even came with its own problems because drug had to come from Germany and all this sort of stuff. And it's all in the book, but it took its sweet time. However, I did go on that double whammy. It was two different chemos, and I responded
Oh,
quite
wow.
quite shockingly well, actually. And in my mind, I was fixated that I would, totally fixated, because I needed time to hatch a plan. And so I do remember the doctor even saying, oh, even the radiologist just couldn't believe how well that you responded to this chemotherapy. I'd never seen it before. So prior to that, I guess my mind's like, I'm like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. I'm like pumped up, like, and so I respond to that. And that went on for a few months. And I was just concentrating on staying well throughout that chemotherapy. And then a few months in, I said to the doctor on a visit, actually, it was more than a few months, it might have been about 6 months in. I said, how long's this? I didn't want to ask, but it's like sometimes you can stick your head in the sand. This is working. How long is this going to work for? And he said, I'll put it this way, it won't be working in a couple of months, very matter of factly. So this thing called melanoma, it goes like wildfire. I mean, as you
Mm.
heard from my original diagnosis to someone fit and healthy, it was spread throughout my whole body, you
Yeah,
know,
wow.
without me even knowing. So when he says this about that this isn't going to be working in a couple of months, and look, I'm going to tell you, I was pretty obnoxious in a lot of ways,
Mhm.
and I'm not a rude person, but it was just this defense kind of mechanism. And when you're in a situation and somebody that does the job every day, like your oncologist, they
Yeah.
say things like,
Yeah.
they're saying, gee, the weather's bad today.
Yeah,
They say
exactly.
in that tone. And I put my head down and I said, well, if you think I'm going to effing hang around and wait for that to happen, you've got another thing coming. And he's, my poor husband was like, oh, he was embarrassed by it. So he starts saying to the doctor, is there anything else? Like, is there
Yeah.
anything, is there anything else? And he's like, oh, look, I have heard of some experimental stuff, just out of the rats. And my husband goes, you know, there's a funny saying in Australia, like, can you tip us in? Can you get us in?
Mm,
What he was asking for is like a referral. It's like, can you tip
sure.
us in? And the doctor said, no, that's if you want to go down that path, that's up to you. It's up to the
Oh,
patient. And it's like, fantastic. You've just kind of been told your treatment's going to stop working. Basically, you're going to die, but we can't help you anymore.
right.
And so We go home, and I'm in the car, and I'm like steam coming out my ears, and
Hmm.
and I get home, like push past the dog, stick my head in the computer, and the first thing I wanted to do was try and find somebody that had survived my diagnosis.
Uh-huh.
And sadly, there was no one in the world. So,
Wow.
yeah, if there was, I couldn't find them. But I've since found out there actually wasn't that we know of.
Mm.
So, I realized in that moment that I'm it. I'm the mentor. I'm the one that has to lead the way here. I'm the person I'm
Mm.
looking for. So
Mm.
forget about anyone else. You're it. So I
Mhm.
find this clinical trial in Portland, Oregon. That's stage
Mm.
one. And this is after hours of researching. And it was like it just came into my face. And it was like it was a drug, and it was an immunotherapy drug. So it's not
Mhm.
chemotherapy. It's a drug that they were working with that basically teaches your immune system to fight the cancer. Doesn't fight the cancer, but it
Mm.
only but it only um, works on your on the bad cells. It doesn't damage your good cells like chemotherapy
Wow.
does. And by this stage, I've got no hair, no eyebrows, no, I'm yeah, and I'm a very, I'm quite a vain person, so it's like people say, "Oh, that's nothing. That's not small price to pay." I'm no, that's a big price to pay. Sorry for me. And so I find this clinical trial, and I'm like to my husband Scott, "That's where I have to be. That is where I have to be." And the fact that your body is helping itself and restoring itself, just I thought, how much sense does this make? This is, and
Mm.
so then I start my campaign. I call up the very next day, spoke to the
Mhm.
person in charge of the clinical trial, and I've got to say, they're just so amazing that they took calls from this person in Australia, and I became the biggest serial pest you could
Mm.
ever imagine. And he was like, "Oh, wow, Australia, okay." And I'm like, "Hi, my name's Julie. I'm a mother, and I'm from Australia, and I've got And they were really, really kind, and they listened to me. But then the rejections came one
Mm.
after the other, and it was didn't even start off by saying they were full. It started off by saying, "I'm really sorry. This is only for American citizens. Good luck,
Mm.
on your way." Um,
Listen.
and then it was like, what if you die here? You're not in our medical system, and that's a huge possibility that you will die here. Just one thing after the other. You won't stay for 2 years. That's a long time to be away from your family and friends. And then finally, they say to me, "Julie, we're really sorry. The trial's full. We can't take any more. And the drug company won't take any more." So they even had an out. They didn't even have to blame
Mm.
themselves.
They're
They
like,
they said,
yeah, it's out of my hands, so I'm not the one to
"Yeah,
blame.
sorry,
The
Julie."
drug company.
So it took 3.5 months. All the
Mm.
while, my dying period was, at best, I had 9 months to live. At best.
From the start.
So from the start, from the start. So I'm 6, 7 months in, not 6 months in at this stage, and keeping well. I'm still on chemotherapy. I'm running. I had a mantra that I sung to myself every day, and I was one track mind. And then
Mm.
I'm like, I can't, I can't stomach, and I can't cope with that. I am going to die and leave my children because I'm not American. I'm not a US citizen, or this trial is at full capacity. Come on, you can fit one more.
Yeah, really.
And yeah, and I just didn't give up. I just would not let go. And then finally, I think I always say I may or may not have, because it was a bold move. uh,
Yeah.
I rang up and recited the Hippocratic Oath over the phone to them, saying, when people become doctors or medical practitioners, the
Uh,
Hippocratic Oath says, if you can help somebody, if you think you can help somebody, you must. That's pretty much what it says. Not in those terms, because it's
yeah.
quite old and,
Yeah.
And that was my last ditch effort. I think it was the next day or 2 days later. I'm walking around my house and I get a phone call, and the phone call is from the hospital in Portland. And they say, hey, Julie, what time would you like your appointment with Dr. Erber, who was the head doctor? And I'm like, what the? And
Oh my God.
basically, they've said, come over. And I arrived there. I had to go off chemotherapy that was working, which I didn't tell anybody about because they would have thought I was stark raving mad, but I did. And that had to be out of my system. And I
Mm.
arrived, yeah, pretty much 9 months to the day of my 9 month, you know, end of
Yeah.
life, supposedly, in America. Yeah,
Wow.
that was that little journey.
That there's so many lessons to take away, and I wonder what you would have to say about the traits and characteristics that you had to lean on, I guess, in order to make this a possibility for yourself, but also not give up, right? The other side of this is that it's maybe, I mean, it definitely sounds like it could have been easier to give up. I mean, there was a lot of obstacles. So what kept you fighting? Um, and what did you learn in that experience of what it seems like you were picking up the phone every day, calling this hospital in Portland, even though they've told you no? I mean, how many times had it been? 10 times, 20 times?
Oh,
That
yeah.
you just kept calling and thinking, this can't be the end.
Yes, it was phone calls, it was emails, it was me harassing my husband to send emails. It was, I remember one day him being in the bathroom and me banging on the door saying, what are you doing in there? You have emails to send. Like, you know, I needed it to come from his perspective as well, and and which it did. And some of the emails I found, this is my wife, she's the mother of my kids, she's my everything. Like we
Mm,
put our heart and soul into that,
mm,
and I just felt. And you know what? I'm not sick at this stage, right? I'm on chemotherapy. I had my brain
mm,
tumor removed. I forgot to tell you that
mm,
bit. So that's 16 staples in my head, and that didn't tickle, I can tell you. But apart
mm,
from that, I really stayed as well as I could, with exercise, with diet, I did all of the things. And so when you're not feeling really sick, it's like, no, I'm not, this can't be the end. Like, and I believe, when it does hit you, it hits you really, really fast, which I just did not want to happen.
mhm,
And whilst I had all the tumors scattered around, they were all quite small. And, when they grow, then that's when they cause like the damage. So, look, I just became one track mind. It was like, yes, I looked after my kids and all the rest of it.
mhm,
And I really protected them probably more than I should have from sort of
mm,
harsh reality of the matter. And I'm just like, no, no, I've made a promise. I've been brought up to keep my promises. I am not
mm.
going to give up on this. And you know what? To be honest with you, my next move was probably just to go anyway. My next move
To
was
go to
probably to
Portland,
turn up at the
to
hospital,
go to
turn up
the
at the
hospital.
hospital. Yeah. Yep. I don't know
Mm.
whether, how that would have gone over. And interestingly, like moving forward 11 years, I'm best friends with the people in the hospital. I've gone back to speak twice at their charity events, but
Wow.
they are honest and they say, oh God, we thought, what have we got here from Australia? They thought I was going to be so painful. I ended up speaking, like helping them raise money and doing all those things. But I probably did seem like a real pain at the time. But I found this strength inside of me
Mm.
that I was like a different person. I'd always been, reasonably strong and fit and all that sort of stuff. But this was next level. This was finding another personality, basically, that was
Mm.
within me that I didn't know I had. And yeah, that like we fly over to Portland and like all the while, there's no guarantee anything's going to work for me.
Yeah.
No guarantee whatsoever.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
we're still sitting at 38, 40% of chance
Yeah.
that I would respond. Yeah.
So actually, that's a great segue into the next question because you've gotten into the trial. It's still experimental. We don't know if it's going to work. So, how long were you in the trial? What was that process like? And then how did the cancer miraculously disappear? I don't even know the right word, but how did you find out you were cancer free?
Yeah. Great question. And it didn't miraculously disappear. So this is what's even
Right.
more interesting about it. What I thought then and what I've found out since. So 6 weeks, you're infused with this drug.
Hmm.
In the beginning was like quite a bit of time at the hospital, and then as time went on, it kind of dwindled out to like once a week. And yeah, so 6 weeks before you get a scan, part of the deal. When I was back here, I was a bit of a bossy boots, and when I was on chemo, I'd be like, I want a scan. I want a scan. And my doctor goes, okay. Like, 2 weeks later. But over there, it was following the protocol. You just could not step outside it. So we're there for 6 weeks, not knowing whether this is
Mm, working.
working for me. Yeah. We dragged like our daughters were teenagers. One of them stayed at home by herself. They were both going to stay at home. One was doing her last year at school. The other one's
Hmm.
dance teacher. But the night before, she just went, I can't stay without you, Mum, which is understandable. She was really anxious. So we had to pick her up and bring her with us for a while. And so she was with us. Oh, she'd gone home by the time I even, Scott, yeah, we had to, no, I'm just trying to think of how that all panned out. But so 6 weeks later, we have scans and then it's the waiting to get the phone call. And it was
Mm.
back in our hotel room and the phone rings and we've got an American phone. We don't have many friends, none. The only person in the phone was the doctor. So we
Gotcha.
knew who it was when the phone rang.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And Scott and I are going, we're just staring at it, staring at the phone. I'm like, you
My
pick it up, you pick it
gosh.
up. I just couldn't even bring myself to pick it up.
Oh my gosh.
And
Yeah.
he picks it up and he's gone, hi, Dr. Erber. And he said, well, Julie's responding. And my husband, again, this makes me cry, just stood with the phone and gave me the thumbs up.
Oh my God.
And with that, I just slid down a wall backwards, going, oh my God. So I'd responded. And then the next thing he said was, it's good, but it's not great. She has to keep going.
Mm.
So in Julie's mind, Julie's like, one infusion, nothing to see here. They're going to, good to go home to Australia. Everything's fine. But it wasn't that. It wasn't that. So this was a slow burn, a
Mm.
very slow burn. So I'm over there for, I ended up being over there for 9.5 months. The trial was for two
Oh,
years.
wow.
Once again, I'm a girl of my word, big time. So is my husband. But in this case, we're like, we want to get back home as soon as we can. We want to get back home. So
Mm.
we started a campaign to get back home. And yeah, and it was really, my husband somehow hacked into the drug company and found someone's email address. And because to them, I'm a number. I'm patient 71. They don't
Mm.
know my name. They don't know who I am. So Scott sent me this heartfelt email saying, patient 71's actually, her name's Julie. She's my
Yeah.
wife. She's a mother. We come from Australia. And yeah, I think they were totally perplexed at how we did that. Scott somehow found a card on the doctor's desk. And so it is all very clandestine. And then, yeah, and then I snuck home a couple of times to see my kids. I wasn't allowed to, but I did.
Uh-huh.
So between a treatment, I get on a plane, come home, cuddle my daughters, and get on the plane
Yeah.
and go back. I did that twice. And I think maybe the third time I was home. This is 9 months in, right? In the morning of I was due to go back and for infusion in 2 days. And I'm done, I'm just like, I'm saying to my husband, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back. And he's like, you're going back. I'm booking your flight today. And this time I was going back alone. No more money. He can't come with me. And I'm crying. And I threw a pillow at him, I think. And I think used some language. But I knew I had to go back. I knew I had to go back. So that morning when he left for work, he's going to book my flight. I flick the jug, make a cup of tea, go over to my computer, just like this, and I go on and I check my emails, and I get this email, and it says,
Mm.
your next infusion of nivolumab, which is the drug, it had a name by then, will be at the Patricia Ritchie Centre in Crow's Nest in Sydney in 2 weeks' time. So they bought the drug. They're letting me go home, and I'm already there, but they don't know. And I'm like staring at the screen, like I'm home. I'm not going back, and I can
Oh
have
my
this drug.
God.
Yeah, I can have this drug here in Sydney, and at 40 minutes away from home. And so that was just like, I was just like crying my eyes out. I ring my husband, have you booked that flight yet? He's like, not yet. I'm just about to. And I'm going, well, you don't need to because, and we're just like, we're both crying. And
God.
I was able to tell my daughters I'm home now. And then that went on for like 2, 3 years that I had.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So what happened in the end, what I find out in the end, we did a 60-minute story here in Australia. And what I find out in the end that even though I still looked like I had all these tumors, even though that they shrank to a certain part, they found out that it was just scar tissue in my body, not tumors. So for years, I'm thinking I still have tumors in my body. But you know what? I always suspected I didn't. I just
Mm.
knew in my gut. And when I would go to my appointments, I'd get a doctor, because you start off with one doctor and then you're normal, and they go,
Yeah.
"Oh, your disease is stable, Julie." And I'd say, "I don't have a disease." It was kind of this mind over matter thing. I don't have a disease anymore. It's gone. Turns out I was right. That's what I
How
went
long
through.
were they treating you for the disease when you maybe didn't have the disease? Or was that a
Yeah,
necessary part of,
I'll never know.
oh, okay.
I'll
Yeah.
never know. I was really lucky to not have side effects from this drug.
Mm.
My thyroid blew out. I've been on thyroid medication since day dot after the first or second infusion. That's okay. That's a small price to pay. But I didn't really get sick, so I kind of felt like I just, when it's not broken, don't fix it. Like just
Yeah.
keep going. But I did. Luckily, this drug is not a drug that it's like a protein, and it's not a horrible drug. Mind you, it can be for some people. People have had, kidney and liver failure and stuff from this. So yes, I guess I try not to think about how long I was on the drug. But
Yeah.
look, I'm ever grateful because I was alive. So and I was
Oh my
around,
God.
and yeah,
Do
I
you
used to
remember
drive
the
there.
day? Do you remember the
Sorry.
day of having this realization that you were cancer free? And how did you tell your daughters? This was all, initially, right? That was what was keeping you going.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was pretty much on 60 Minutes, which was
Mm.
delightful for them. They loved it. Oh, this is so I had the scan on TV, and
Oh,
I'm like, they're like, "Are you happy to have like a scan?" And I'm like, "Well," and I'm claustrophobic, so I hate having scans, and so I was a wreck, which was great TV because they're going to put me in
yeah.
the scanner, and I'm like, what, and it was all
Oh,
all
no.
legit. It was all me, like, um, and then when the results came back, I had an appointment, and my doctor, my professor, she sits there with Scott and I, and she says, you have a complete metabolic response. Like, obviously, they've realized about the scar tissue and everything. You're cured from this. As far as we're concerned, you're cured from this disease.
Wow.
Well done. You're an inspiration, I think she said. And it's like, Scott and I think he said something like, oh, we'll get the champagne out tonight. You have to go and have a look at it. But yeah. And then it's funny because I tried wherever I could not to make a big deal to my girls, and I didn't make a big deal out of
Yeah.
that either. I just kind of went, oh, yeah, they've given me the big C, which is the good one, the cure, and it's all good. And they're like, yeah, of course, mum. I promised them I was going to do it. Mum promises, then it's going to happen. So, yeah, that was just a really, really amazing moment that I realized, oh my God, I've gone from that to that. And
Yeah.
I'm a health, you know, crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Now looking back, does it feel surreal that
It
that was your
actually
experience?
it it does. As I said, when you were reading the intro, I'm like, what girl who is she talking about? And
Oh
it
man.
does seem surreal. Everything seems surreal. The fact that you know, so what happened with the book and stuff is like I lay in when I was on chemotherapy, I went into menopause
Hmm.
because one of the drugs was a breast cancer drug. So I'm on a breast cancer drug and a kidney cancer drug for melanoma. And
Mm.
and I would be laying awake at night, sweating and carrying on. I didn't even know what was going on at first until the doctor's like, oh yeah, sorry, I should have told you you're going to go into menopause. Oh, thank you. And
Oh
I
yeah.
yeah, and I lay there, and I started examining my life and thinking, okay, Julie, so this is it. If this is where it ends, how do you evaluate your life? How do you sum it up? Did you do did you live to your potential? Did you do and like all the answers were coming back, no, you didn't. I didn't.
Mm.
Like I thought I had all the time in the world. We have a saying here, and it's like, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna,
Hmm.
somewhere down the track.
I'll get
And
to
I was,
it. Hmm.
yeah, I was gonna do this. So I lay there and I'm like, and look, it wasn't bad. I was a pretty good mom. I say I didn't think I was going to win any Mother of the Year awards, but I was a pretty good mom. Played a lot of sport, worked, did all the norms. But I thought, did I stretch myself? Did I
Mm.
actually delve inside to my potential? And the answer was a sad no. So I say to Mrs. Universe in the night, in the dark, we get through this. I promise, another promise, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to give hope to others. I'm going to get on stage. I don't care if there's 8,000 people. And once again, monster, yeah, as if. But I'm making these promises. And then when push came to shove and I had come back home and I was well and I get this knock on the door on the other side. Hey, remember you made those promises about writing the book?
Okay.
Yeah. And it wouldn't let up. And I'm like, oh, yeah, but, like I can't write. I wasn't even good at English. And I just kind of said that. And it's like, no, you promised. So there I go. I have to sit down and put pen to paper, and away I went. And I'd never written anything in my life. And then I do get up and speak in front of however many people are in the room, no matter what, and, spread the story of hope. So I have now delved into that potential that I never would have had I
Yeah.
have not been through this experience. And that is one of my biggest messages to people. Don't wait till you're told you're dying to start,
Mm.
truly living. And we all get the monsters, that's what stops people. These little voices that say, and they're usually little and sometimes they're very big, but oh no, what if you fail? What if you can't do that? And I had all those with the book as well, but I was a wake up to the monsters. Then I'm going, oh no, like thank you. I know you're trying to help because they're only trying to keep you safe. It's like the prehistoric. They think you're going to die. You're going to go out of the cave, and anything that's out of the norm is out of your comfort zone. They try to dissuade you from doing.
Yeah. Mhm.
And when you wake up to that and you realize that they're only trying to keep you safe, that you're really not going to die, you know, you might succeed, you might fail, but hey, the
Mhm.
best part is just having a go. And so I'm awake up to all of that now. And I love to teach that to others. Like, and don't fight them. This is my message. Don't go, oh, F off, shut up, go away. I don't need you. That's mean because they care about you. They want to keep you safe. That's all they know. They don't understand the world's changed, how far we've come. That
Yeah, exactly.
they they're caveman oriented.
Mhm.
And so if you go, oh hey, thanks for caring. This is me. I'm like a split personality, multiple personality person. I just go, hey, thank you. Guess what? I'm doing it anyway. Come with me. We're gonna have fun. Simple as that.
What does, now that you have that mindset of living to your full potential, listening to those inner voices and stop saying, I'll get to that and do it,
Yeah.
as it arises, what does
Yep.
that feel like for you now that you've had a chance to be able to do that? How does it make you feel to be
It
able to
feels
say, I'm living at my fullest potential?
it's the best. And it's definitely not the fullest yet. But it yeah, plenty more to come. Like, we'll write another book, which will be again another challenge because it won't just be my story. I want to do a transformational memoir, which is like parts of the story with my just what I'm talking about
Amazing.
to you today. Yeah. So that'll stretch me because it's not just sitting down writing what actually happened. I have to,
Uh-huh.
um, so I'm excited about doing that. And of course, I still get the monsters. Even
Uh-huh.
coming into a podcast, I would have done I don't know how many of these, and it's like, oh, what if you forget what you What if you forget what you want to say? What if you don't? It's like it's just
Yeah,
human
exactly.
nature.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it feels great. And I want it for everyone. I want it for as many people as I can, you know, get that deep understanding that you are so much more than you think you are. And if you have a recurring desire about
Mhm.
something that you want to do, you are capable of it. I don't believe you get the desire if you're not capable. Yes, you've got to go through the steps. Yes, it can be overwhelming, but you're capable of it. I don't get a knock on the door to say, "Hey, Julie, I think you should be a rocket scientist. I think you'd be a really good," because
Oh,
that's not
interesting.
that's not for me. That's not where I am in the world. That's not my place in the world. But what I do get, and even before this happened to me, interestingly, I would get little nudges. Hey, you should be out teaching, talking to people about, your wisdom, whatever that may have been at the time. So
Mm.
that was always in the background, even back then. But now I respond to the call.
I haven't heard that before, and it resonates so deeply that you wouldn't get the desire for it if you weren't capable of it.
Yep.
I love that. I'm going to make a quote of that on my wall. I couldn't agree more.
Yep.
I've been started this podcast back in March of this year, and I've interviewed now. I believe you're my 20th interview. Actually, I publish
Woo.
every other week, and through all of the stories that I've been learning and hearing and helping understand, I've been understanding better about how people um, understand what it is they want and then how they go about their process of accomplishing it, which, I call a bold move, their
Yep.
process of making bold moves. I have collated, I suppose, a bold moves recipe. And
Wow.
the very first part of the recipe is three parts, but the very first part is identifying your desire. And I think you just spoke to that, which is aligning what you want to do or what you're want to do or your next bold move with who you truly are is really where the magic is. And I
Oh,
love that
yeah.
extra added piece where you're not going to get those desires if you're not capable of it. That's such a
Yep.
relief actually for people, isn't it?
Yeah. You don't get the recurring desires if you're not capable of doing it. Yeah, it's your soul. It's your
Yeah.
soul telling you what
Yeah.
your place in the world, I believe. Your purpose, if you want, your gift.
Yeah, exactly.
You
Your
know that
gift.
that
Oh,
that's what I've come to learn. Yeah, and yeah, I feel like
um,
I've yeah got a gift that I
amazing.
need to give. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. This is such a great place to leave off. I mean, we could talk so much longer. Your story is so harrowing and brave, and it reminds us all to never give up and to be determined and resilient. You don't know the power that's within you until you call upon it almost. And so if you can embrace that as early as possible, you'll be able, like you said, kind of you'll be able to start living in your full potential and achieve those things that you want to. My final question for all my guests, Julie, is what do you know today about being bold that you wish you would have known earlier on?
Wow. Well, definitely persistence. Definitely persistence. I mean, when your life's at stake, you will, you know, you will have that persistence. But why is it only when our life's at stake? I guess.
Mhm.
I think we give up a lot easier if it's something that's not life threatening. And we shouldn't. We shouldn't. It's so I wish I knew that. Um I wish I knew that things, incredible things are possible. And like, as you know, my story started when I was 50 years old. Like
Mm,
I'm 61. I'd lived half my life before I even knew that I was capable of telling stories, writing, sharing my
sure.
wisdom, getting up on stage. Like, no, I just wouldn't have ever done those things before. And I really, yeah, want to impart that. Yeah, just have a look see inside of you, and just look, plan your next bold move. There you
Mm,
go. Plan your next bold move and take the little steps towards it. You know, just I think things can and I do, and I still do suffer from a little bit of overwhelm. My
hmm.
personality is to like, have 10 things going. But what I did learn from this experience is one track mind and focus is a big key to getting there. It's a
Mm,
big key. Sometimes you've
mm,
got to push the other things right out of sight for a while
mm,
and just focus on your end goal. And also, a big thing for me is, I don't know if you've heard about a book called The Five Regrets of the Dying.
oh, by Mitch Albom?
No, this lady, Rhonda somebody. Oh, I'm not even
Okay.
sure. I
Okay.
haven't read the book, but I've just read stuff online about it.
Okay.
And number one, the biggest regret is that people didn't,
Mm,
you know, play to their own songbook and achieve the things that they wanted to achieve, you know. And that to me says it all,
oh,
you know. Yeah, if you're lying on your deathbed going, and that could have been me,
yeah.
that almost was me. And what I've achieved since has been amazing and incredible,
Yeah.
you know. And yeah, so it's about, and it doesn't matter how big or small it is. It's just like, don't don't leave it out. You are the most important person in your life, and the satisfaction you get when you achieve a goal,
Mm,
be that be staying alive or writing a book or whatever it may be, is just the best. And it
yeah.
feels great. And when you're feeling great within yourself, you've got so much more to give
Mm,
others.
good point.
And yeah, and I mentor, patients all the time now.
Mm,
And, you know, I do my best to put them in the right frame of mind. I'm not, I'm not God. I can't change the outcome, but I can change, mindset and looking outside the square.
yeah.
And just one more thing's popped into my mind, just to impart as well, is that you are in control of your life in sickness and in health, no doubt about it. You know, I listen to doctors, I always listen to them, but I always went outside the box as well,
Mm,
which, so
amazing.
yeah, thank you. And look, I also would like to say, I don't want to sound like oh, look at me, I survived. I was very lucky. I did
Hmm.
a lot of hard work to be lucky, but I am very lucky, and not everyone is. And I just
Yeah.
want to make sure that I don't come across as like being what we call in Australia cocky, because I'm not.
Uh,
I'm not.
not at
But it
all.
also,
Your story is such an inspiration, and it just signifies to me that we need to do everything within our power to fight for our dreams in whatever situation it is, fighting
yep,
for your life, fighting for your goals, your dreams. You need to put all your energy behind it. And that's what your story That's a big takeaway from your story for me. So thank you so
Yep.
much for being here, Julie. Where can people buy your book it's called Patient 71, an inspiring true story of a mother's love that fueled her fight to stay alive. So where can people go to buy your book?
So it's in America now. I think like Amazon. It's in book. Do you have Booktopia over there? That might just be an Australian thing. So
I
yeah, it's
don't
definitely
know.
yeah. So Amazon. You can
Okay.
get it from Amazon. Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. And if anybody wanted to follow you on Instagram or online, is there somewhere they can go for that?
It's yeah. That is another area I have to pick up my game. Being my age, it's but Instagram is at patient71 underscore.
Great.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm on Facebook under, I think I'm patient 71 on Facebook as well. You can find me, and I have a website, which is julierandall.com.au.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Julie. It's been an honor to meet you today. I'm so glad to have heard and been inspired by your story, and I just appreciate you coming on and sharing it with everyone else as well. Thank you.